Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishwabad Brahmansa Parivrajaka Ashtotra Shada Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT Founder-Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Vishwabad Brahmansa Parivrajaka Ashtotra Shada Shri Śrīmad Bhaktivedanta Swami Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Kodi Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे. All glory to assembly with all glory to assembly with all glory to assembly with all glory Shri Guru Gauranga all glory Srila Prabhupada की जय. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. We are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, entitled The History of the Life of Ajamila, and verse number 15. This verse is a very key memory verse, and it is not very difficult to memorize as well, but very important. And this is a conclusive verse in this section, making an important statement about bhakti. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi katsyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kasnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kasnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kasnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kasnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Mataji. Kejit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kansnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kejit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kansnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kejit kevalaya bhaktya Vasudeva parayanaha Agham dhunvandi kansnyena Niharamiva bhaskaraha. Kechit, some people. Kevalaya bhaktya, by executing unalloyed devotional service. Vasudeva, to Lord Krishna, the all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead. Parayanaha, completely attached only to such service without dependence on austerity, penance, cultivation of knowledge, or pious activities. Agham, all kinds of sinful reactions. Dhunvanti, destroy. Katsnyena, completely, with no possibility that sinful desire will revive. Niharam, fog. Iva, like. Bhaskaraha, the sun. Only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So it's a very beautiful 4-page purport. So we need to hear very attentively. Otherwise, we can go to sleep or the mind can go anywhere. In the previous verse, Shukadeva Goswami gave the example that the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree may be completely burnt to ashes by a fire, although the creepers may sprout again because the root is still in the ground. Similarly, because the root of sinful desires is not destroyed in the heart of a person who is cultivating knowledge but who has no taste for devotional service, there is a possibility that his sinful desires will reappear. As stated in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 10:14-4, Shreya Shrutim Bhaktim Udasyate Vibho Klishyanti Ye Kevala Bodhalabdhe. It's from the Brahma's prayers. Speculators who undergo great labor to gain a meticulous understanding of material world by distinguishing between sinful and pious activities, but who are not situated in devotional service, are prone to material activities. They may fall down and become implicated in fruitive activities. I think I will explain this, or this is kind of intro to this verse, connecting to previous verses. So we will go systematically so that we can remember. So you can just remember what we read so far. Om Ajnanadivaranthasya Jnananjana-shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in the beginning of this chapter, Shukadeva Goswami presents two processes as a solution to counteract sinful reactions. First one is Karmakanta, where the process of atonement or prayashchitta is described, and then the process of Jnana Yoga. So here, when Shukadeva Goswami presented the process of atonement or prayashchitta, Maharaj Parikshit outrightly rejected it. He said, Prayashchittam adho partham kunjara shauchavat. Manye kunjara shauchavat. So he said, Prayashchittam is apartham, meaning useless. Prayashchittam atho partham. Atho apartham. Apartham means useless. It's waste of time. Means atonement is a waste of time. Manye, I consider it like kunjara shauchavat. Just like an elephant taking bath. So it is fun for elephants to take bath. They like water. They, using their trunk, they pour water here, there. They shower the water. They pump the water out. They have a good time. But after coming out from a lake or a pond, which I have seen, they again throw dust on their body. So this is manye kunjara shauchavat. Manye means I consider. Kunjara shauchavat means just like an elephant taking bath. So he rejected. Why? Because the sinful proclivity, the sinful mentality is not purified. So what's the point? One may do some atonement, one may counteract for some sinful activities that one may have performed, because of course a person having some knowledge is always fearful about sinful reactions because he knows that he or she is accountable for one's activities. So that is intelligence. Being accountable is intelligence. And no worries about whatever activities we perform, that is foolishness. So karma places in the position of accountability. So we are accountable for everything. And when one understands, then one considers, look, I have done many negative activities, though I have to counteract for that. And that's why Vedic literature presents karma kanda. And atonement is part of that. And there are many people who are very experts in this process of karma kanda. So if you have done some sinful activities, if you go to them, they will tell, okay, do such and such activities. However, we don't know the efficacy of that in the age of Kali, even though such processes exist. And even devotees can succumb to such allurements. Devotees may consider, look, I have done this, I have done that, so I may have to do some demigod worship. We have our Kula Devata. So devotees can also think about that. Kula Devata means family deities. If we don't worship our family deities, the life will be doomed. We may get some curse. So even initiated devotees can be fearful about such kind of sinful reactions, and one may adopt to such kind of worships which are not recommended according to Bhakti Yoga. And after that, Maharaj Parikshit very expertly presented that Karmakanda and atonement are not going to really help anyone to purify the heart. So one may counteract for some sinful reactions, but one may perform another hundreds of sinful activities, and one has to face concomitant reactions. Then Shukadeva Goswami, having understood the intelligence of Parikshit Maharaj, moved on to Jnana Yoga. So in Jnana Yoga, he presented the whole process. Tapasa brahmacharyena shamena cha dhamena cha tyagena Satya Shaujabhyam Yamena Niyamena Cha. So that was I think that were the few verses before, 13 and 14, the 2 verses before. So he presented the process of Jnana Yoga, which is being completely situated in knowledge. And here you see the presentation of Shukadeva Goswami is very logical. Well, he said, because of ignorance, one is performing sinful activities. Even though one may counteract the sinful reactions by karmakandic activities, still, because the ignorance is inherent in a person, and so he further commits sinful activities. And because of that, we have to give them knowledge. In other words, one has to be situated in knowledge, and if one is situated in knowledge, one is not going to perform any sinful activities. So it's a very Shastric logical statement from Shukadeva Goswami. And then he presents this process of being situated in knowledge. So he presents, one has to perform austerities, one has to perform celibacy, one has to have the control over the senses, one has to follow the rules and regulations. And in that way, if one's intelligence is situated in spiritual knowledge, then one will not commit sinful activities. And in that way, Kshipyanti Agham Mahadapi. Even the Mahadapi, even the greatest of the sinful activities could be counteracted. So that's why and an example is given. What is that? Venu Gulmam Ivanalaha. Venu Gulmam Ivanalaha. So, okay, it is counteracted, but the example is Venu Gulmam. Venu means bamboo. Venu Gulmam, the stalk of the bamboo is growing up. However, what happens? You can burn a bamboo tree. In other words, by the process of knowledge, one can stop all sinful activities. But what happens is, when the right opportunity arises, that is when the wind is blowing, even though the stalk of the bamboo is burnt to ashes, still there are roots, and they will again come up and they will again grow as a bamboo tree. So this is the example. The sinful seeds are not burnt into ashes. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami, or in this conversation, Maharaj Parikshit rejects both the processes of Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. And then here, as a conclusive statement, Shukadeva Goswami presents this verse. What is the real process? And that is Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya. So the process is Kevala Bhakti. The process is Kevala Bhaktya. So we will discuss further about this Bhakti. So we'll read from purport and we'll continue our discussion. And this is an amazing purport. If one becomes attached to devotional service, however, his desires for material enjoyment are automatically vanquished without separate endeavor. Bhakti Pareshanubhavo Virakti Anyatra Cha. If one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, material activities, both sinful and pious, automatically become distasteful to him. This is the test of Krishna consciousness. Both pious and impious activities are actually due to ignorance, because a living entity, an eternal servant of Krishna, has no need to act for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, as soon as one is reclined to the platform of devotional service, he relinquishes his attachment for pious and impious activities and is interested only in what will satisfy Krishna. The process of bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, Vasudeva Parayanaha, relieves one from reactions of all activities. Since Maharaj Parikshit was a great devotee, the answer of his guru, Shukadeva Goswami, concerning Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda could not satisfy him. Therefore, Shukadeva Goswami, knowing very well the heart of his disciple, explained the transcendental bliss of devotional service. The word Kechit, which is used in this verse, means a few people, but not all. Not everyone can become Krishna conscious. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita 7.3, Manishyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatadisiddhe yatadamibi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvadah. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Practically, no one understands Krishna as he is, for Krishna cannot be understood through pious activities or attainment of the most elevated speculative knowledge. Actually, the highest knowledge consists of understanding Krishna. Unintelligent men who do not understand Krishna are grossly puffed up, thinking that they are liberated or have themselves become Krishna or Narayan. This is ignorance. To indicate the purity of bhakti, devotion service, Srila Rupa Goswami says in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmadhyana vratam anukulyena krishnanu sheelanam bhaktiruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called the devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami further explains that bhakti is kleshagni subhada, which means one takes to devotional service, all kinds of unnecessary labor and material distress can entirely and one achieve, cease entirely and one achieves all good fortune. Bhakti is so powerful that it is also said to be moksha lakhutakrit. In other words, it minimizes the importance of liberation. Here we will discuss the first part. So in describing the process of Jnana Yoga and how it is going to be ineffective, Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse, Shreya Shritim Bhaktim Udasyate Vibho Klishyanti Ye Kevala Bodhalabdhe, from Lord Brahma's prayer. It's a very important verse to understand that the speculators, they may spend enormous amount of time in studying Shastra, performing austerities, performing celibacy, practicing renunciation. Still, it is considered useless labor. So that's why Klishyanti, they are going through a lot of difficulties. For what? Kevala bodhalabdhe. So to realize one's spiritual identity, a spirit soul, they may go through such austerity. Still, it is waste of time. Why? They are giving up bhakti. Bhaktim udasya. They are not interested in bhakti, and so they cannot really counteract the sinful reactions to the core. And here, in contrast, bhakti is presented, and the first statement of bhakti Srila Prabhupada presents is from the 11th canto. What is that? Bhaktihi pareshanubhava. Very important verse to know again. Bhaktihi pareshanubhava. And Pareshanubho Viraktir, that is the first line. What are three aspects? Bhakti, devotional service. Pareshanubhavo, one gets the direct perception of Krishna. Para Isha, the Supreme Lord. Transcendental Isha, transcendental Lord. His Anubhava, one gets direct perception of the Lord. And then Virakti, detachment. So Bhaktihi Pareshanubhava Virakti. And then Anyatracha, how? Anyatracha Esha Trika Ekakala. So I'll explain this line after going through. It's mentioning Anyatracha Esha Trika Ekakala. Trika means these three of them. Ekakala, one will get at once. Ekakala, at once. So what? Bhakti, one will get devotion. As you progress in bhakti, you are getting three things simultaneously. One is devotion service, devotion for Krishna, affection for Krishna. Then Pareshanubhava, one get direct perception of the Lord. And three is Virakti, detachment from matter. So Ekakala, three, one is getting at once. And to explain this, a wonderful analogy is given. Prabadhyamanasya yadha ashnataha syuhu. Who for whom? Ashnataha. Yadha ashnataha. One who is eating. Syuhu happens. What happens? One who is eating. Prasadam? Okay, this is eating, just eating. Tushti. Tushti means satisfaction, one gets happiness. Second, pushti, one gets nourishment. And kshud apayo, one's hunger is mitigated. Kshud apayo anughasam. Anughasam means each morsel. So each morsel one is feeling, oh, this is very tasty, this is very satisfying. Meanwhile, one is getting nourishment. And third, one's hunger is mitigated. So this example is given how one gets satisfaction, nourishment, and freedom from pangs of hunger. Similarly, when one performs devotion service, one develops affection for Krishna, one gets devotion for Krishna. Simultaneously, one gets direct perception of Krishna and one gets detached from the material energy. It's a very powerful verse. So this verse Srila Prabhupada quotes in this context to narrate how bhakti is effective to free one from material reaction and the material proclivity to the core. Nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhajam, Brahma Samhita. Bhakti nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhajam. So bhakti is such that it burns karmashayam gradhati, that we'll discuss later. But when we talk about any aspects of bhakti, it has the most profound impact to the core. Karmani nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhajam. So there nirdahati is mentioned. Nirdahati means the sinful reactions are burnt to the core. Nirdahati, not just dahati. Nirdahati, completely burnt. Nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhajam, for bhakti bhaja. There also it is contrasting with non-devotees. Even Indra Gopa to Indra. Indra Gopa is a worm and Indra is Lord Indra in the heavenly planet. All are subjected to karma. But karmani nirdahati kintuja bhakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So that's the point. So here the efficacy of bhakti is mentioned, and Srila Prabhupada makes another very important point. I'll read that purport. If one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, material activities, both sinful and pious, automatically become distasteful to him. Both good reactions and bad reactions. We don't want bad reactions, for sure. But can we say that we don't want the pious reactions for our activities? Can we say that something good happening in life materially, can we say no to that? Or in other words, can we be transcendental to that? Or we are not affected by those good things that comes to our life? Or can we easily be elated by those things? Or can we use that in Krishna's service? Being aloof from that. That is the question. And Prabhupada makes this point. That is the taste of Krishna consciousness. So this is something we have to experience. As it is mentioned. Tushti pushti, kshudapayo anughasam. So this is something we have to experience just as we are honoring prasadam. For example, we have classic stories. Even a few decades back, Giriraj Maharaj. Giriraj Maharaj was from a very wealthy family, and he was in India. His parents, their background of lawyers, they flew from America to India, and they put a blank check in front of Giriraj Maharaj and asked Srila Prabhupada, if he can come with us, you can fill how much money you want. You can fill and you can take the money. Only thing, Giriraj Maharaj, then a brahmachari, he has to leave Krishna consciousness and join the family in America. Giriraj Maharaj didn't do that. So this is pious reaction. You can get as much money as you want. But no, a devotee will not do that. That's why there are examples of Goswamis. Tektva turnam ashesha mandalapatim shrenim thadat uchavat. Even they were in the high up in the society. They left everything tuchavat, as insignificant. And what they do? Kaupina kandhashritau. They accepted a loincloth and kanthimala. That's it. They were wearing very simple clothes, just one cloth. They left everything and they came to such a humble position because they had taste for Krishna. So distaste for material things is proportional to taste for Krishna. It's a very simple formula. So there's nothing wrong to have reactions of pious activities or good things happening to life, but distaste is essential. One can use in Krishna service, but distaste is essential if we want to use even good things that which are coming to our life in Krishna service. That's the reason we know this famous verse by Srila Rupa Goswami. What is that? About Yukta Vairagya. Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. Anasakti Vishyan Yadharham Ubayunchataha. Yadharham Ubayunchataha. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. Now if you see this verse carefully, you can see that Anasaktasya Vishyan. So one is, first of all, we always emphasize so much on utility is the principle, which is our Mahavakya from Prabhupada. Utility is the principle. But there are a few things to understand before that. First one has to be anasaktasya vishyan. One needs detachment from matter. Then only one can use it in Krishna service properly. Anasaktasya vishyan. Yadharham upayunchataha. Yadharham. In the proper way, it has to be utilized in Krishna service. So it's not just somehow or other. And nirbandha Krishna sambandha. And there also nirbandha. Detachment is mentioned. Why? Krishna sambandha. It is connected to Krishna, and seeing the detachment is very important. And then only it can be utilized properly. Otherwise, we think that if I become a millionaire, billionaire, what's the problem? I can use everything in Krishna service. Does that work? No. Material energy has power. That will drown us in material consciousness. So one has to be qualified to use material energy in Krishna service. So this Yukta Vairagya is a very advanced principle. It's not a cheap principle. We may think, Yukta, everything you use in Krishna service, no problem. I have a great desire to have an expensive car. I'll use in Krishna service. This is not really Yukta Vairagya. This is called Karma Mishra Bhakti. Yukta Vairagya is very advanced stage. Whatever material desire we have, we want to fulfill that, and okay, we can use some in Krishna service. That's called Karma Mishra Bhakti. We fulfill our material desire and partly for Krishna. So we need to distinguish between Karma Mishra Bhakti and Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya, very advanced principle, introduced primarily propagated by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He wore big suit, coat. Okay, of course, he was wearing dhoti, you can see the photo. But he had a big jacket from top till the knee. And wearing a big turban. And he rode motor car. Can you think about a sannyasi during that time wearing a jacket? Is impossible. It's an impossibility. Rejected outright. One is rejected from the ashram. It is completely Maya. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he wore everything. And he spoke fluent English. And it is mentioned in Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav that one English lady visited the king's palace where Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was there for some time. That time, when this lady spoke to Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, she mentioned that the way he spoke and his demeanor was more British than a Britisher. It was more British than a Britisher. So that's the way he carried himself. Why? To preach Krishna consciousness. To preach Krishna consciousness. So it is not for any other purpose. That is Yukta Vairagya. Srila Prabhupada, he demonstrated Yukta Vairagya. He had millions of dollars, if you think about it. He had hundreds of temples. He had so many books, so many followers, but he wasn't attached to anything. I heard in one lecture, His Grace Bhurijan Prabhu mentioning, he was sitting, I don't know exactly which place, and one devotee asked, because now you have a big society, lot of money, lot of things to manage, do you have anxiety? And Prabhu sat back and he said, I have no anxiety. This is called detachment. No anxiety. Everything belongs to Krishna. So this is a very advanced platform that we need to understand. And In devotion service, many things can come. Fame, name, fame, etc. Very difficult to handle. And that's why great devotees, they didn't want fame. We know the classic example of Madhavendra Puri. He ran away from Ramana, right? Kshirchor Gopinath. He didn't want fame because he knew if this pastime come to know that Krishna stole sweet rice for him, if he thinks like that, then people would glorify him, and he didn't want the fame, so he ran away. Overnight he ran away to Puri. But of course Krishna had his plan. So by the time he reached there, this news spread everywhere. There is Madhavendra Puri is a great devotee. For him, the Lord himself, personally the deity, stole sweet rice and kept aside. So this is it's a very high platform. Bhugarbha Goswami. In Vrindavan, when you go, you can go to the Radha Damodar Mandir, you can see the deity of Bhugarbha Goswami. You know how he got that name? Bhugarbha, what is the meaning of Bhugarbha? Under the earth. Cave under the earth, Bhugarbha. He got that name because he didn't want to be famous, because he was doing Nirjan Bhajan. He was doing chanting all the time, very advanced, completely engaged in Krishna consciousness, which is a very advanced platform. We need service. We cannot sustain just by chanting. As Prabhupada said, we need service. Otherwise, we will be in passion, the mode of passion, and then ignorance. So we will be in trouble. Bhugarbha Goswami was doing bhajan, and since he didn't want to be popular, and he didn't want any attractions and followers, he had a cave under the earth, and he used to go inside and he used to chant. That's how his name became Bhugarbha Goswami. So these advanced devotees, they don't want any kinds of so-called pious reactions, which the whole world is longing for. So this is the advanced platform. So now, in our devotion service, practically speaking, we may have a good lifestyle, we may have good things happening in our life, and if we are not attached and we are eager to come to the temple and do service and be with the devotees and do service, do preaching, if we have that consciousness, then yes, we are getting this direct experience. Pareshanubhava. We are actually getting the taste, tushti. So we can see in our life that we had to experience this satisfaction, tushti. How? We become indifferent to so-called good things in our life. Rather, we see if it can be used in Krishna service, it is useful. Otherwise, it's not useful. So that is the meaning of one shouldn't be elated in happiness, material happiness, or not disturbed in material distress. The meaning is that the material happiness, or when good things happen, for a devotee who is neophyte, immediately mind can go to sense gratification. It's an automatic thing. When we are peaceful, devotees are peaceful, and if something good happens, the material enjoyment and material happiness is like a fever. It's an unnatural state for the soul, just like the distress. And so there is a tendency for a neophyte devotee to get into sense gratification, or the mind can straight away go into sense gratification when something materially goes all right. So if one has freedom from that, it is a sign of advancement. So that is here. That is the Pareshanubhava, that is tushti that we had to experience. So for Krishna service, we had to take challenges. We had to get out from our comfort zones. There is no other choice. If we want to see the reciprocation of Krishna, we had to do something for Krishna. Otherwise, how can we see any reciprocation from Krishna? If we sit idle and we are not so qualified to chant all the time and be absorbed, we can see the mind wandering everywhere. So we have 16 rounds to chant. Or we may chant here and there something extra for sure. But we had to be engaged in Krishna service. For example, now marathon is coming. Srila Prabhupada's book marathon is coming from 24th of November till 24th of December. It's a great opportunity to get out from our comfort zone. Do something to distribute books. And this time, we have decided to primarily focus on hardbound books, because Prabhupada wanted hardbound books to be distributed. He said, it will stay for decades together. It's a reality. So you can just stay there somewhere, and it will keep preaching over the years. So we want to do more of a hardbound marathon. So we have ordered hardbound Bhagavad Gitas in various languages, primarily in English, of course. So it's a great opportunity. We had to take boxes and distribute them. And then we see Krishna's power, his empowerment. If you have a target, okay, I want to distribute 500 books, then Krishna will empower us how to do it. Krishna will give us intelligence. If you don't have the desire to do that, then why do we need intelligence? So that's why if you want to see Krishna's reciprocation, and if you want to see aloof from material happiness or distress, preaching is a great opportunity. Book distribution is a great opportunity. We push it. We had to push it. We all have that experience during marathon. We just push it. Whatever it is, just go for it. And we see that we go beyond, to some degree, physical limitations. We can stretch for more hours. Whatever we feel, the books are going. We are tired. We don't know what we are speaking, but books are going. So we need such kind of experiences. So some of the best experiences that I have in my Krishna consciousness are during marathon. I can still remember, one of my initial marathons many years back. And that time also, that's interesting, that time also we were doing hardbound Bhagavad Gitas. And it was a pleasure to distribute hardbound Bhagavad Gitas. And then we started with softbound Bhagavad Gitas, and we got a taste for that because it's easier to give. And then now after a few years, we are again getting back to hardbound Bhagavad Gitas, which is very good. I still remember standing in Swanson Street and, trying to do, the final few Bhagavad Gitas, the last day of marathon, just the day before Christmas, just pushing in the night, giving out some Bhagavad Gita. And I had this last one Bhagavad Gita, I just somehow that I want to give. And, someone came along, when still I can remember a tall Aussie guy from the countries, a bit like a hippie. And, giving, and he said, this book is really good, show some photos. He said, it's too easy, here we go. How much? Yeah, $15? No problem, take 20. I was, so happy, it's like that, So yes, we need such kind of experiences in bhakti. So that is explained. It is very rare. So we will now go through word by word slowly as we read. First word in this is kechit. Prabhupada explains very beautifully this word kechit. Kechit means only a rare person. It is not for the masses in one sense. It is for the class. So that is kechit. Only someone, not everyone. And Prabhupada explains that based on Manishyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye ritamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Not everyone, only maybe thousands millions of people may try for perfection. But how many actually come into perfection? In humans, only very few. Prabhupada explained, not very few. That is Bhagavad Gita saying, thousands among men try for perfection. But even those who have achieved perfection, only one may know in truth about Krishna. So this is the rareness of Krishna consciousness. So given that, Kechit also is explained by Acharyas that one who takes up bhakti as the main process, not as a secondary process. Because if you ask many people, especially Hindus, many people may do some bhakti. They may come to temple, they may chant some Hare Krishna or some other Krishna mantras. That is okay. But there, the bhakti is a secondary process. They have other things, and on top of that, I will chant one Hare Krishna also, which is okay. Good. But that is not considered as rare. What is rare is bhakti as the prime process. So our main purpose is to perform bhakti. And here in the translation, Prabhupada explains what kind of bhakti. We will go through that. That is Kevala Bhakti. Kevalaya Bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada explains that in Anyabhilashada Shunyam Jnana Karmadhyanavradam Anugulena Krishnana Shilanam Bhakti Ruttama. So he defines what is the real bhakti, the unalloyed devotion service. That is the real bhakti, which is not mixed with karma or jnana. So exactly the same theme. Prabhupada is very amazingly presenting this Anyabhilashada verse. So that is very important to know that bhakti has to be the prime process, not as a secondary process, but as the primary process. And then we will see the effects. So I will read further from the purport. Non-devotees must undergo material hardships because they are prone to commit sinful fruitive activities. The desire to commit sinful actions continues in their heart due to ignorance. These sinful actions are divided into three categories: Pataka, Mahapataka, and Adipataka, and also into two divisions, Prarabdha and Aprarabdha. Prarabdha refers to sinful reactions from which one is suffering at the present, and Aprarabdha refers to sources of potential suffering when the seeds, bija, of sinful reactions have not yet fructified. The reactions are called Aprarabdha. The seeds of sinful actions are unseen, but they are unlimited, and no one can trace when they were first planted. Because of Prarabdha sinful reactions that have already fructified, one is seen to have taken birth in a low family or to be suffering from other miseries. When one takes to devotional service, however, all phases of sinful life, including Prarabdha, Aprarabdha, and Bija, are vanquished. In Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 11, 14, 19, Lord Krishna tells Uddhava, Yathagnir susmrdha archi karoti edhamshi bhasmasa tatha mat vishaya bhaktir uddhavainamsi krisanaha. Sorry, it is Krishnashaha. My dear Uddhava, devotional service in relationship with me is like a blazing fire that can burn to ashes all the fuel of sinful activities applied to it. How devotional service vanquishes the reactions of sinful life is explained in Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 3:33-6 in a verse spoken during Lord Kapiladev's instruction to his mother Devahuti. Devahuti said, Yannamadheya shravananukirtanat Yat praharanat yasmaranat abhikvachit Svadobi sadhya shavanaya kalpate kudapunaste bhagavan nudarshanat. My dear Lord, if even a person born in a family of dog-eaters hears and repeats the chanting of your glories, offering respects to you and remembers you, he is immediately greater than a Brahmana and is therefore eligible to perform sacrifices. Therefore, what is to be said of one who has seen you directly? In the Padma Purana, there is a statement that persons whose hearts are always attached to the devotional service of Lord Vishnu are immediately released from all the reactions of sinful life. These reactions generally exist in four phases. Some of them are ready to produce results immediately, some are in the form of seeds, some are unmanifested, and some are current. All such reactions are immediately nullified by devotional service. When devotional service is present in one's heart, desires to perform sinful activities have no place there. Sinful life is due to ignorance, which means forgetfulness of one's constitutional position as an eternal servant of God. But when one is fully Krishna conscious, he realizes that he is God's eternal servant. In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami comments that bhakti may be divided into two divisions: Santata, devotional service that continues incessantly with faith and love, and two Kadachitki, devotional service that does not continue incessantly but is sometimes awakened. Incessantly flowing devotional service, Santata, may also be divided into two categories: service performed with slight attachment and two spontaneous devotional service. Intermittent devotional service, Kadachitki, may be divided into three categories: Raga Bhasa Mai, devotional service in which one is almost attached; Raga Bhasa Shunya Swarupa Bhuta, devotional service in which there is no spontaneous love but one likes the constitutional position of serving; and three, Abhasarupa, a slight glimpse of devotional service. As for atonement, if one has caught even a slight glimpse of devotional service, all needs to undergo prayaschitta atonement are superseded. Therefore, atonement is certainly unnecessary when one has achieved spontaneous attachment, spontaneous love, and above that, attachment with love, which are signs of increasing advancement in Kadachitki. Even in the stage of Abhasa Rupa Bhakti, all the reactions of sinful life are uprooted and vanquished. Srila Jiva Goswami expresses the opinion that the word Katsyena means that even if one has a desire to commit sinful actions, the root of that desire are vanquished merely by abhasa rupa bhakti. The example of Bhaskara, the sun, is most appropriate. The abhasa feature of bhakti is compared to twilight, and the accumulation of one's sinful activities is compared to fog. Since fog does not spread throughout the sky, the sun need do no more than merely manifest its first rays, and the fog immediately disappears. Similarly, if one has even a slight relationship with devotional service, all the fog of a sinful life is immediately vanquished. So this is very important section, because Srila Prabhupada amazingly presents the cycle of sinful reactions, right? Prabhupada primarily mentions that there is different kinds of sinful activities: pataka, mahapataka, and adipataka. In Sanskrit, pataka means crime, sinful actions. So, great, greater, greatest. So it's like that. One is crime, then a greater crime, and the greatest crime. That is pataka, adipataka, and mahapataka, and then adipataka. So, relative and then finally superlative. So here we can see, even if one performs all the sinful reactions, so we know the cycle. Why one does sinful activities? According to nectar devotion, that's what Prabhupada is corroborating here. Because of ignorance, avidya. And because of ignorance, one will have, one does sinful activities. Before sinful activities, what is before sinful activities? No? Desire. So that is called bijam, the seeds of sinful activities. So there is avidya on top. From there, the seeds, bijam. And from bijam, papam, sinful activities, right? From the desire, sinful activities one performs. And because of that sinful activities, what is the next? Reaction. What kind of reaction? Sinful reaction, but what kind? Sinful reactions in unmanifested, in store. So whatever sinful activities one may perform, immediately there is a sinful reaction, but it is in store. It is unmanifested. It is there. So that is called aprarabdha. It's not yet manifested. So there is avidya, there is seeds, there is the sinful activity, there is aprarabdha, unmanifested, sinful reaction. And just give the time. It can be few seconds, it can be few minutes, it can be few days, few weeks, few months, few years, or few lifetimes. It is going to manifest. Then it's called prarabdha. It's called manifested sinful reaction. Then because one commits sinful activities and it is stored as unmanifested sinful reaction, there is an effect of that. What is that? Kutam, or proclivity, tendency. And tendency will further create sinful desires. So this is a vicious cycle. So there is this sinful desires, sinful activities, unmanifested, manifested, and from there again proclivity that will create more seeds. So this vicious cycle continues. And that's why in this purport as well as in nectar devotion, Sri Rupa Goswami very clearly mentions how each and every aspects of sinful reactions are vanquished by the process of bhakti yoga. Here, Prabhupada quotes the appropriate verses. Just like the fire burns the fuel into ashes in no time. Any fuel you supply, it will burn into ashes. How much of a supply of fuel is there? It just burns. Similarly, how much ever amount of sinful activities one may have performed, everything will be burnt into ashes by devotional service. And this verse is specifically referring to what sinful reactions. So in this cycle, starting from avidya, bijam, papam, aprarabdha, kutam, and then again bijam, and finally this aprarabdha is there, the current manifested sinful reaction. So this verse, do you know what is actually being burnt? There is unlimited supply of sinful activities, so there are concomitant reactions. Everything will be burnt into ashes. Yes. specifically, this verse is specifically pointing to unmanifest, that's right, aprarabdha. It's specifically pointing to aprarabdha because we don't know how much is there. So it's like unlimited in multiple lifetimes to come, but everything will be burnt now by devotional service. So that's why this verse is quoted. And then the next verse is Yannamadhe Shravanani Kirtanadyat Prahanadyat Smaranada Bhikkojit Shwadobi Sadhya Savanaya Kalpate. Even a person from the background of dog eater, Savanaya Kalpate, he can perform Vedic sacrifice which is reserved only for qualified Brahmanas. But even a person from a dog eater family can perform Vedic rites. So this is prarabdha. This is manifested sinful reaction. If we are born in a sinful circumstance or if we are performing sinful activities, that is prarabdha. It's a manifested sinful reactions. So we cannot blame anyone. Because I was born in such and such family, everyone was eating meat. Because we wanted that. We ate meat because we wanted that. It's not because of anyone else. So that is manifested sinful reaction. Unfavorable circumstances. But even that can be transformed now by devotional service. So that is Shwadopi Sadhya Savanaya Kalpate. It is possible. In fact, Jiva Goswami gives an interesting commentary to this section in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, not in Bhagavatam. He mentions that if according to the Vedic circumstances, if they are not allowed to perform sacrifices, still one is qualified. If one wants to perform Vedic sacrifice, if he is not going back home back to God, he has the desire to do the Vedic sacrifices born here. And if the society is not allowing in this lifetime, he can go and he can come back. Next lifetime, he will be born in such a circumstance, he can again perform all the Vedic sacrifices. So if it doesn't happen in this lifetime, next lifetime it will happen. But that's not our aim. Our aim is to perform devotional service. So this is interesting that prarabdha karma is also burnt into ashes. And ultimately, the prarabdha karma is completely burnt when we lose this body. Because when we get the spiritual body, then the prarabdha karma is completely burnt. Till then, we have to carry our prarabdha karma, even though it is helping us to do devotional service. So it is actually yukta vairagya. It is a vehicle to perform devotional service. That is our body and the mind, which has to be cared for. So that is here. So that is about prarabdha. So in this, the first one, all this unmanifested sinful reaction, everything is burnt into ashes. And in fact, in that section in Nectar Devotion, Prabhupada quotes other verses from Rupa Goswami. What? From Bhagavatam. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktya karmashyam gridhitam udgradhayanti santa. Very nice verse. Tadvanna rikta ratayo yatyo viruddha shrodo ganasta aranam bhaja vasudevam. Sir, we'll focus on this point. That is karmashyam gradhitam udgradhayanti santaha. The hard notes in the heart. Karmashyam gradhati. Please think about this point. Karmashyam gradhati. That is the hard notes which are formed in our heart. In other words, the strong material attachments that we may have. Isn't it? It is so difficult to give up. It is like it always comes. It is many times it is compared to hard note. Because hard note, we cannot just take it out. We can try. Long time, it's very difficult. So it is the note in the heart. We are so attached, we are so bound to bad habits or bad thoughts. So many things. It comes. So that is karmashayam, gradhitam. It is bound. But udgradhayanti santaha. Santaha, the devotees, udgradhayanti. They can untie. One pulling. Okay, the whole note is gone. Even though it's a hard note, devotion service, chanting, it is gone. And this verse is quoted to explain what sinful part or sinful reaction or whatever is removed in that cycle, vanquished in that cycle. It is coming to the core. Yes, it is the desire in itself and the proclivity included. They are already vanquished, saying that can be done. Why? Tatpada pankaja palasha vilasha bhaktiya. By worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. Tatpada pankaja, lotus feet. And palasha vilasa bhaktiya. One can remove. This is also again Kumaras are telling to Pradhu Maharaj. Prabhupada also quote, this from Devahuti, it has been quoted here. And then nectar devotion also gives, just like when there is a forest fire, even the snakes are burnt. Similarly, any sinful desires and ignorance, everything will be burnt to the core by the process of devotion service. So it is very promising. And then this is actually a life of a devotee. I will explain briefly and conclude. It's a life of a devotee. So it is like, here it is mentioned, after mentioning the Anyabhilasha, the Shunyam verse in the purport, it is mentioned, Bhakti will manifest Kleshagni and Shubhada. This is the process of, as one goes through the bhajana kriya, and when one comes to Nishtha, this will happen. So we can take a simple example, just like a devotee, or not a devotee now, just walking on the street, Mr. X, Y, or Z, walking on the street, gets a book, or meets some devotees in Harinam, and then, oh yes, very interesting, let me try. This is a beginning, because there was some Ajnana Sukriti from the previous life, he's able to appreciate. It's interesting. Let me try out. So read something, may associate a little bit with the devotees. That is from bit of Shraddha to Sadhu Sangha. And not, after all, these people are not too bad. This is the beginning of devotional service. And in the association of the devotees, one may start a little bit chanting Hare Krishna. Still, one may not be following all the regulative principles. Chanting may not be proper, may not be 1600, but something will start. This is the life of a devotee. And then one sees that, okay, these people are actually really good. And this knowledge is really very amazing. I haven't seen anything like this. And as one studies more and more, one starts saying, really, I have never seen anything like this. And I can feel a relief. So this is the beginning. So one is actually starting very, very initial stages of bhajana kriya. And one is getting spiritual realization then and there. And when one sees Krishna's form, one feels attracted to the Lord's form, and one feels, I have never seen anything like this. This can happen from a very beginning devotee. So Jiva Goswami explains the interesting aspect of bhakti is that one can see the prayojana, the ultimate result of bhakti, even being a neophyte. One can get a perception of that even being a neophyte. One can see what is Vrindavan like, how beautiful is Krishna when one is a neophyte. So this is the process of bhakti. Whereas Jnana Yoga, one cannot see that. One can talk as much as one wants about Brahman, but one doesn't know what it is. I still remember, during my teens, I was into spirituality, looking what is what. And I asked my dad also into all these kind of things. So many books were there, so I was reading Upanishads. I asked, what is this Brahman real? I said, what is this Brahman? Tell me. After reading, I really can't understand what is Brahman. Everything is talking about Brahman because it's all impersonal stuff. Then people are giving many explanations. What is this? Explain to me. I cannot really understand. He explained something. I am sure that time he didn't understand, neither me. So this is other processes. No one can understand what is it. But bhakti, one can understand. Eat a gulab jamun, one can understand what is bhakti. Right? As simple as that. That is pareshanubhava. Bhakti pareshanubhava. Viraktir anyatra. So this is direct perception of the reality. So then one become more fixed in chanting. Chanting 16 rounds, associating with the devotees, now following regulatory principles. So this is again the beginning stage of bhajana kriya. Then one actually takes initiation from a spiritual master when one is qualified. And that's why one can say officially starting bhajana kriya or the practice of devotional service. That is one is officiating into the entire parampara, and that is a real bhajana kriya in one sense. Of course, one is being elevated from the time one is chanting Hare Krishna. There is no doubt about it. It's not that the bhakti before initiation was useless. It's not like that. But that is the official enrollment into the parampara. And then the official bhajana kriya. And that bhajana kriya, one may go for few decades. In that process, one will experience, heart is getting slowly cleansed. Many unwanted things are coming to our face. Oh, really? So still one has to pursue devotional service. One may find it very difficult. One may be pulled down by our own mind and material energy. Still one shouldn't stop. Just keep going. And that's where when one comes this is the practice of Anishta Bhajana Kriya. Anishta Bhajana Kriya means unsteady devotional service. So keep going. And it can take few decades. Then slowly one will come to Nishta Bhajana Kriya. Where, as it is mentioned in this purport, two qualities will be manifested. Which are they? Kleshagni, not much disturbances. Very minimal disturbances. And Shubhada, one will manifest good qualities. So all the devotees will manifest very good qualities. It is just a matter of time. Even though we may have bad qualities, it will be there, natural. But it's just a matter of time. Good qualities will manifest more and more as time progresses. So this is a real story. So what we are reading is a real story. This is not theory. This Kechit Kevalaya Bhaktya Vasudeva Parayanaha Agham Dhunvanti Kasyana. We are now going through that. Agham Dhunvanti. Sinful reactions are slowly going away. And then we will come to the final section. That is Jiva Goswami's analysis. That is Bhakti is classified into two. Santata and Kada Chitki. So Santata means incessant flow of devotional service. We wish, but it is far away. And that can be again classified with spontaneous attachment for Krishna and without spontaneous attachment for Krishna. Or one is Vaidhi according to Ragadi principle, and one is Raganuga, where one is attracted to Krishna through the devotees of Vrindavan. So one is attracted to a particular devotee in Vrindavan, one wants to devotional service in that mood. So that is spontaneous. So Santata is very high platform. Let's come to the next one. Kadajit Ki, which is intermittent. Our bhakti is intermittent in the sense that we cannot be absorbed in Krishna all the time. At least I cannot. So that's why we have a regulative process where we are forced to think about Krishna. We are forced to speak about Krishna. We had to do service, so we are aligning ourselves to Krishna's program somehow or other. So this is Kadajit Ki, which is, first one is Raga Bhasamayi, devotional service in which one is almost attached. So this is also advanced platform. Okay. Next level is Raga Bhasa Shunya Swarupa Bhuta, which is more relatable. But there is no spontaneous attachment. But at the same time, one knows that this is my constitutional position as a servant. I am such and such Dasa or Dasi, so I will serve. And the next one is Abhasa Rupa, a slight glimpse of devotional service. Now, this is mentioned because the fog is dissipated when sun's first rays come. It's not that the sun has to completely come up in the sky. In the initial rays can dissipate the fog. Similarly, the beginning of bhakti, even in the stage of Abhasa Rupa. So we will be at least in Abhasa Rupa. Even if we continue Abhasa Rupa, that is sufficient to vanquish all sinful reactions. So that is the point made. This is showing that power of bhakti. In comparison to Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, Karma Kanda, etc. Its efficacy is demonstrated. And its practicality is also demonstrated. So see this? So initial fog is enough. If you go to Vrindavan, this is a good, December if you go there, you see December, January, fog, so much of fog. Morning you get up, you can't see. In a few meters, maybe 1 meter you can see. After that we can see so much of fog. But as soon as the sun rises, or the sun rays come, sun doesn't come in the sky, but the sun rays come, the fog is removed. Similarly, even the beginning practice of bhakti can remove the sinful reactions. And as we go further, what happens? Pushti, Tushti, and what is the next one? Kshut Apaya. Anughasam. Each and every morsel. One gets satisfaction, one gets nourishment, and freedom from the pangs of hunger. That is bhakti, pareshanubhava, and virakti. So kechit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayanaha agham dhunvanti katsyena. Katsyena is also explained. What is the explanation of katsyena? It is to the core. That's why this abhasrupa coming, It is completely, destroyed. Katsyena. So very important to know. It's katsyena. It is destroyed to the core, as we explained earlier. So translation is telling completely, with no possibility that sinful desires will revive. that much. So the root, the bija is also burnt. Everything is burnt. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any quick question? Otherwise already time up. Okay. Thank you. You have a question? Yeah.
Destroy the root of sinful tendencies?
The reason is, the question is, why Jnana Yoga cannot uproot the sinful tendencies completely? The reason is, the realization is not complete. As we explained earlier, we need attachment for detachment. Because we have to be attached to something. So if we need to have a full attachment, that has to be for Krishna. Then only there can be full attachment. And then one can have complete detachment. Since the realization in Brahman is not complete, because it's only Sat aspect of the Supreme, it's not Chit and Ananda are not realized. And by nature we want relationship, and that can only be satisfied in connection to Krishna. And since it is not completely fulfilled, there will be traces of attachment. So that is what is mentioned here. So Prabhupada's point is, we know that famous verse from the 10th canto, chapter 2, Garbhastuti. Aruhya grichrena param padam tatha apadantyato anadruta yushmadangraya. One can perform a lot of austerities, as Prabhupada quotes in the same purport. Very important verse is being quoted, right? Kevala bodha shuddhe shreya shrutim bhaktim udasyate vibho klishyanti ye kevala buddhi bodha labdhe. So much of austerities are performed, but it is insufficient. Because by nature, we are loving, and we have to love the Lord. We have to love Krishna, and we have to do that loving devotion service. And that can only satisfy the Lord. Bhagavatam, first canto, right? E atma suprasidati. That's the only way the atma will be suprasidati, fully satisfied. And since that is not achievable in Jnana Yoga, so it is considered incomplete.
So, in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is saying nahi jnanena sadrisham,
yes,
pavitra
nahi jnanena sadrisham, yes, 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
So what jnana is Shri Krishna referring to?
So that is divya jnana. Divya jnana hridi prakasito. It's not Brahma jnana. Yeah, divya jnana hridi prakasito, we sing. Are we talking about Brahma jnana? No, we are talking about divya jnana. That is knowledge about us and Krishna, our relationship, bhakti. So bhakti knowledge is bhakti itself.
So that's sambandha jnana?
Yes, starting from Sambandha. Yeah, starting from Sambandha, which will be more matured as Abhidheya and Prayojana. So, Jnana, for devotees, it is Bhakti. Bhagavatam, it's not Jnana. Studying Bhagavatam is Bhakti. It's not Jnana. It's not just a process of knowledge. It isn't. So, we have to understand that, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Granthraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.